in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Time for us to go behind the headlines on today's breaking news that the Obama administration will allow Colorado and Washington's marijuana legalization. In a historic move, the U.S. Department of Justice under Attorney General Eric Holder released a memo of guidance to U.S. attorneys to allow the states of Washington and Colorado to move forward with their implementation of legal, regulated marijuana markets. Entitled Guidance Regarding Marijuana Enforcement, Deputy U.S. Attorney General James M. Cole explains how this new memo supersedes the so-called Ogden memo regarding federal priorities in medical marijuana states. Cole writes, quote, "The guidance set forth herein applies to all federal enforcement activity concerning marijuana in all states," end quote. As written, this memo promises to not only allow Colorado's and Washington's recreational marijuana programs to proceed, but should also relieve federal pressure against medical marijuana programs in the 20 states and Washington, D.C. The Obama administration makes clear that it intends to enforce the Controlled Substances Act, or CSA, but notes that the Justice Department is, quote, "committed to using its limited investigative and prosecutorial resources to address the most significant threats," end quote. The memo then lists 8 priorities U.S. attorneys should consider for federal marijuana enforcement, which include distribution to minors, sales by gangs and cartels, diversion to non-legal states, using marijuana laws as cover for other crimes, use of violence and firearms, drugged driving and other public health consequences, the spoiling of public lands, and to continue to disallow the use of marijuana on federal property. So long as the state's medical and recreational programs address these priorities, the memo promises, quote, "conduct in compliance with those laws and regulations is less likely to threaten the federal priorities set forth above," end quote. The memo even suggests that, quote, "a robust system may affirmatively address those priorities," end quote. However, the Obama administration will be taking what Attorney General Holder called a trust but verify approach when speaking today to state governors during a conference call. If, in Justice's opinion, the states fail to uphold these 8 federal priorities, the Obama administration, quote, "may seek to challenge the regulatory structure itself, in addition to continuing to bring individual enforcement actions, including criminal prosecutions, focused on those harms," end quote. In a paragraph relevant to America's largest medical marijuana dispensary, Oakland's Harborside Health Center, and many other large for-profit or non-profit dispensary operations, the administration explained that, quote, "prosecutors should not consider the size or commercial nature of a marijuana operation alone," end quote, when deciding whether to prosecute. Rather, they should weigh each case against the 8 listed federal priorities. Of course, the final paragraph of the memo makes clear that this is merely a memo of guidance to federal prosecutors, and it makes no guarantees and creates no rights whatsoever for those engaged in the state lawful cultivation, distribution, sales, and possession of marijuana. It remains to be seen whether this memo is truly a watershed moment for federal acceptance of marijuana legalization. The last time a Department of Justice memo guided U.S. attorneys not to waste prosecutorial resources on medical marijuana providers who were, quote, "in clear and unambiguous compliance with existing state laws providing for the medical use of marijuana," end quote, we saw the Obama administration engage in the most medical marijuana raids of any presidential term in history. So while we are very excited to hear about this memo and it seems to indicate a change in direction in federal policy, keep in mind that these federal policies are enforced at the U.S. attorney level, and we still have to rely on people like Melinda Hogg to interpret this memo and to use her prosecutorial resources in accordance with it. The text of the entire memorandum is available through many outlets. My piece written up on it is available at nationalcannabiscoalition.com as well as theweedblog.com. And unlike other outlets, I've actually given you the entire text of the memo rather than a PDF so that you can easily cut and paste it from those websites into any Facebook or Twitter or your own blogs if you so choose. This memo also makes note of the October 2009 Ogden memo and the June 2011 Cole memo, and again, does seem to supersede these memos. With Attorney General Eric Holder being called before Senator Patrick Leahy's Judiciary Committee to answer questions with regard to marijuana enforcement and the over-incarceration of Americans in this country, with all the pressure that is being brought to bear by the now 20 states that have legalized the medical use of marijuana, and with the Obama administration and Eric Holder seeming to want to address the over-incarceration of Americans, this memo provides more indication that perhaps in Obama's second term, he is interested in making positive strides in the area of the Department of Justice and in specifically the area of the war on Americans using marijuana. It's a hell of a day, Brian.
Oh, hell of a day.
We're
freedom.
We're going to celebrate by seeing if we can avoid any federal prosecution while we're enjoying this bowl. Hope you do too.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he